Good morning. Let me see. Infinite angles. Infinite angles. It's the angle of the dangle. That's what's important. All right. So. Oh. Awesome. I have this idea for socks where you have toweling soles so you can mop up as you go. Do you think?
I think it's been done.
Oh, really? Yeah, very probably. Okay, so the movements this morning are really pretty simple, but the concept is about angles and direction of angle. So, for instance, at the end of my finger, there is this long line that comes out here off. There's no end to that line. And likewise, out the back here, there is no end to this line. This line goes off forever. This line goes off forever. Likewise, if I bring this line inside, I can imagine at the very core, there is the beginning of this line. So when I make a movement, I can play with the idea of how this line tilts. So I can go like this and imagine that this whole line is making an arc behind me. Or I can imagine that that line starts beyond there. And so I'm making an arc way up in the ceiling. I'm also making an arc down here beneath me. And this is the same right away through all these angles of the bones. But also each thing has an axis. So for instance, here at the sternum, there is this going forward, this going back, this going this way, this going that way. And I can move the sternum without moving the rib cage. I can move this shoulder girdle without moving the rib cage. And I can move the rib cage beneath that because the rib cage also has its own axes. So what we'll be playing with this morning as we roll around on the floor is playing with the movement of those axes. Then once we've played around with the axes a bit, I'll take you through it. We will end up being in falling out of a plane, crime scene position. But flippering, and you don't need to worry about flippering. But with flippering, you can do thanks, Hal. The top of here, the bottom of here goes like that. And if I imagine this thing doing that, then it is a different muscular structural sensation. And basically, all we're doing all the time is offering different choices so that you can recognize the choices that you don't make subconsciously, the choices that you make subconsciously, so that you can make conscious choices. So if this offers a different experience of the way that this moves, then you can say, oh, I can move in that way. This was a discovery that I had this morning that might be cool for you. Okay, we will get to a point where we bring the foot up like this, and note that this is, there is an angle of the foot as it comes up. And being conscious of that angle of the foot this morning for me, I then realized that the toe and the metatarsals will stack in a way that I've not noticed before. And good morning, Julie. And then, you know, I can play with that. I can go, okay, I'm going to move that whole angle. I'm going to move that whole, anyway, blah, blah, blah. Yada, yada. What it means is that the consciousness of the movement of the angles then gives you an option of saying, okay, maybe this bubble is the size of the movement, that the thing is being moved from this distance. And that is a different thing from imagining like that there's a pivot coming from up there that is moving it. This is huge across the sky that is moving the arm. And likewise, when you're lying on the floor, this is scraping the underside of the earth. So the scale of it changes the perception of the relationship of your limb with gravity, which is what Dart is based on, is basically saying hello to gravity with your body. Okay. All right. So I'll talk you through the stuff as per usual. I don't think there's anything, there's no new moves, I'm afraid. Got no new moves for you. No new choreography. Except for sitting on a chair at the end. I'm going to end up sitting on a chair in the end to apply the same thinking that you find on the floor to something, what is it? Homo sedens, which is what we are. Yeah, Homo sedentarians. Yeah. So I've laid it out for you there, James. So just to start off with, come to constructive rest. Or semi-supine, as others have coined it. I think that's dancers came up with semi-supine. Is that right? Or was it constructive rest that the dancers came up with?
I thought constructive rest was Alexander, maybe that, or from the lineage of Alexander.
I think you're right. So
Semi-supine sounds more like yoga or dance.
yeah, I think it was I'll have to look that up.
And apparently, it's limited to Alexander because I've talked to other people and I was like, oh, there's this thing called constructive rest. And they're like, oh, I know constructive rest. And I was like, but you don't know Alexander or Dart. And they're like, no. I was like, whoa.
Something that's permeated beyond that, you know what I mean? Or he got it from someone, which is
Yeah. Yeah, people steal stuff from each other all the time and then don't credit anybody.
I'm selling your live streams.
I ju-
Oh, I'm not
go
supposed to say
ahead.
that.
Go ahead. It's I'm anti-capitalism anyway. I don't care.
Jesus. So I've been, since I learned about this position, I've been putting the block very high. And then, and it feels right because I've been doing it that way for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But yesterday, or whenever we had our session, you put it lower, and Katie said to ask you exactly where you put it, at the curve of your skull.
It's there's a little point at that sticks out at the bottom of the skull. That's kind of where, yeah, the occipital. That's where the occiput kind of. Give me a sec. I'm just going to get you some more blocks. At the occiput, basically. It's where the occipital joint is, and it's where the base of the skull is. And the idea is to have enough blocks so that, so that your head is kind of level. This isn't bad. I'm going to take one away. Hold on. La 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 la. La 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 la. Yeah. So I'm going to start off bringing the mind to the point at the back of the skull. And that point at the back of the skull, giving permission to allow the bones to be free to move, the flesh of the skull be free to move. And I'm going to invite you to trace a line from the point that is in contact with the block through the skull to a point just between the eyebrows. And I want you to imagine that as an axis. Now, this is slightly off kilter. Just a little. It's all right. And what I'd like you to bring your mind to is just imagining that that line goes way, 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 way down beneath and way, 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 way up above. And then I want you to imagine a line that goes from the top of the skull right the way down through the base of the spine, as if it's a line that sends out across the surface of the planet. Just goes on and on and on. And that axis allows the skull to relax around that axis. It gives support. That allows all the muscles of the face, all the soft tissues, the jaw, gives it permission to release. And then rather than move, you're not going to move, but you're going to have an idea of moving. that the axis that goes between the eyes and that's on the block, that axis is going to move very, very slightly to the left and very, very slightly to the right. So you're not actually going to move, you're going to imagine that happening. Let's see if you can imagine that moving in release and lengthening. You're going to just let, as if you're the line that's coming out is drawing it across the ceiling, as if you're drawing an arc across the ceiling. So you're going to turn the head on that axis. You're going to let the line turn the head rather than let the head turn the head. So just have the tiniest, now actually turn the head and do a tiniest bit of moving. The tiniest bit of moving. So you can limit the amount of tension. So you can give yourself time to ask yourself how much tension is in that movement. So if this line goes up here, and there's something that's moving across here. Yeah, I'm moving across there. Yes.
I was on a much lower arc. More like different feeling.
So you can play with the size of the arc, the size of the thing that's coming away, and see how it feels. See if it feels different. You can imagine that line is happening inside the skull. As if there is a lead line inside the skull that is moving and causing movement. Is that right if I use my hands? And after you've played with that for a little bit, I want you to bring your mind's eye to your shoulder blades. And the contact that has on the floor. And as a result, also bring your mind to the shoulder girdle and that axis that goes right across the shoulder girdle. From the point on the sternum out through the tops of the arms. So there is this extension that runs all the way through. And I also want you to have a mind's eye for wherever your elbows are resting on the floor. And there is also that angle there. So if you imagine that axis on that angle, that also goes all the way through the end of the fingers, all the way through the top of the arms. So start to draw intersecting angles all the way through that upper system, where the shoulder girdle extends out across the floor, where the folded arms produce an angle that extends all the way out from the fingers through the elbows. And likewise with the humerus lying on the floor, extending out across the floor there. And then also bring your mind's eye to your pelvis. And the points that are on the floor of the pelvis. And as you allow your mind to come to that point, those points, imagine widening of the pelvis across that axis. And of course, the idea of that line that comes from the top of the head out through the bottom of the spine across the planet. And as you breathe in, you can breathe in the idea of tension, the tensions that are held along that axis. And then as you breathe out, you can allow the body to be released along those lines. You can let the idea of the infinite length of these lines expand the body correspondingly. Yeah. Then you can bring your mind to the way that the femur comes out of the pelvis and creates this line that goes up towards the ceiling. And the lower leg, tibia and fibula, making another line that correspondingly goes up towards the ceiling and down into the foot and into the floor. Yeah. Nice work, Sarah. Nice work. Yeah. And then you can allow yourself the luxury of imagining the points of the foot on the floor, behind the two big toes, the heel, and the line that extends along the foot and out across the floor, that once again just follows this line into the infinite. You can just let your mind have fun. Maybe it just goes all the way to Australia. Just play with the dimension of feeling. Could be just to the wall. Could just be to the other side of Arcata. And the same thing goes for the sensation out of the top of the tibia and fibula. The meeting point of the knees then produces a crisscross of angles that just continues. Okay, so you let the in-breath into to produce this idea of lengthening along these lines, and then the out-breath allowing expansion and release. And on the next in-breath, just going to imagine that there is this long line that goes out the end of the fingers and through the base of the elbow. You're going to imagine that you're going to draw an arc with that line across the underside of the planet, whilst the line that comes out the end of the fingers is going to sweep across the ceiling. And it is that the line is taking that sweep, not the muscle. So you're going to allow that line, allow that line to extend the arm and let the arm come away from the rib cage. And draw that line across the ceiling. Now, you can play with the length of line that takes that up away from and across the ceiling. So it could be as far as, it could be skyward. But you can also play with the idea of what it is that is causing the movement. Is it a line that is passing through the arm that's doing that? Or is it something up beyond that is moving the line that is causing the arm to move? And while you're playing with this, is that right if I use my hands? Yeah. While you're playing with this, really have a mind for what muscles are being used and what muscles don't need to be used as this action happens. And there is something of the reason that this particular arm movement for me was important is because it kind of sets the tone for all the other movements. Are you able to analyze the movement of the arm coming away from the body in such a way that you can pause and notice where unnecessary tensions there? Can you change that by changing the position of the line that's running through the arm? What does your imagination do, or your belief system do, with the movement of the arm that means ease? Can I just use my hands for a minute? And then you can just bring those arms to where you want to rest them. So now we're going to have a little bit of fun with the different just gonna tilt the pelvis by moving the angles of the knees. So as you imagine the tops of the knees to be like pencils that are going to draw an arc across the ceiling, just going to let both knees draw that line across the ceiling, and correspondingly the pelvis is going to, the axis of the pelvis is going to move as a result of the knees moving from one side to another. And so the thing that you can do now as you tilt the pelvis from one side to another is you can imagine the axis moving. You can even imagine the line of the pelvis. Are you okay? You can imagine the line of the pelvis as if it's a compass on its side. You can imagine that compass shifting as if it's rolling on the floor, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you can play with the two things, where the knees go from one side, so you're drawing with the knees, or the should I say, the line above is causing the knees to come from one side to another. You can also do the experiment of the pelvis tilting from one side to another, and the knees move correspondingly. And all of these experiments are actually more about how you are recognizing the uninvited tension rather than the mind, the thought experiment. So just going to do one more game with this before we begin to do some spirals as a result of these movements. And these are tiny movements, so you don't have to worry if you don't sense the movements bigly. And this is about the independence of the shoulder girdle from the flock of ribs, from the torso. So what I'd like you to do is just bring the tips of your fingers together and extend them above your sternum. You're going to make a kind of an arc. Yeah. It's like as if you're hugging a big round, a warm, fluffy yoga ball animal. Yeah, with your elbows off the ground, yeah. And see if you can let that arc allow the weight of the arm come into the socket so that you're spreading rather than squeezing, if this makes any sense. So you can feel the shoulder girdle extending out across the floor. And then from there, you're going to tilt the shoulder girdle, but not the head and the rib cage. See if you can feel the shoulder girdle slide around without engaging the rib cage. This can be a really tiny movement. You're just going to feel the shoulder blades and a tiny movement from the sternum so that the arms move. Yeah. It's like you're tilting that axis around the rib cage. Yeah, great. So you're really feeling the width of the shoulder blades. So as you tilt from one side, you may feel the shoulder blade extending as the rhomboids and all those muscles underneath and the serratus give way to the movement of the structure underneath, or the structure of the shoulder girdle. Great. All right, so then bring that to a stillness, and then you're just going to move the axis of the rib cage underneath that. So the fingers will remain still, and you're going to see if you can turn the rib cage underneath that axis. And this isolation may feel a little. It's going to feel unusual. So I'm going to help you all a little bit. This is going to move. Yes, but the arms aren't. Yeah. Yes, yes. Groovy. You get it? So keep this here. And then this is going to go like that. Oh. And this is going to go like that. Wonderful experiments I can see going on. It's so you're going to keep this here and this here, and then we're going to move this. Yeah. Whee. Yeah. Oh, that is good for you. Oh. Okay, all right. So then bring your hands down onto your rib cage. You know, one more thing in constructive rest, and then we're going to do some other stuff. And this is, let the arc of your knees and pelvis go one way, and then you're going to turn the head in the opposite direction. So you're playing with, this is where the spirals then come into play as a result of the different axes that exist inside the structure. So let the knees draw a line across the ceiling in one direction, over the left or the right, whichever your favorite side is. And then let the head rotate on the axis in the opposite direction. And again, as you play with the breath, play with the distance of the axis. And because we're playing with gravity, also bring your mind to the movement of the line underneath the head, where the support of the back of the head goes down 10 feet, 20 feet, 100 feet, 1,000 feet. The other side of the planet is what the arc is that is moving the back of the head across the floor. You are endlessly in contact with and in relationship to the geography of the universe. As you play with these lines, they just go. There is no end to the level of support that exists between these axes. Yeah.
Like a helix.
Yes. Yes, like a helix. Yeah. And you may also sense that as these turns happen in the body, there are natural spirals in the muscles and the fascia and the corresponding nervous system. Everything is all spiraling, almost as if it was designed like that. Okay, all right. So next time your knees come over to one side, you're going to let the pelvis follow that side. Then the stomach is going to follow that side. Then the rib cage is going to follow that side. And you're going to bring your arm up next to your head on that side, so that eventually your head is going to roll over onto that arm. You're going to lie on that side. And if you can, extend your legs out, so you're creating a line with the side of your body. And what I'd like you to imagine is this: you have a plane that runs through the side of your body, and this plane goes upwards up to the ceiling and descends downwards into the planet. And as you breathe, you're going to extend that plane above and extend that plane below. It's all right if I use my hands. So then, as you extend that plane, as you breathe and extend that plane, so you become part of that plane. And you can imagine that very gently that plane is moving. So you can just gently move backwards and forwards. Once again, scraping the ceiling with that plane and scraping the underside of the planet with that plane. And as you rock, that allows the whole of the body to slide and expand across these axes. And then, have a little, bring your knees in again. So you fold your legs again, and you're going to let the knees and the pelvis roll that system over onto the other side. So let the knees come up. They're going to draw the arc. Yeah. And try and let the head be the last thing to come over. Sorry. So it's good. It's a different way from normally. Bring the knees up and let the pelvis, it's like that axis is turning up around and everything's going to follow. Yeah. So imagine this line here and this line here and this line here is just going to go, it's going to draw. And then the pelvis is also going to draw. And then, yeah, just keep rolling. Yeah. Ooh. And then bring your mind's eye to the elongating line. And then imagine that plane just rocking. Moving all the way through space. When you've had fun playing along that line, just come and lie face down in prone. And have a mind for how you lie along this axis in prone. So just briefly, bring awareness to one of your feet, and you're going to fold that foot in, and once again with the idea of the foot being a plane. Yes, exactly. And then you can just dangle that foot from side to side and just feel that plane draw across the ceiling. And check your butt, check the major muscles all the way up. And allow that plane to just have fun as your foot is being moved by an outside force. And then imagine the line going through from the heel all the way through to the knee. And that plane is being moved, so the heel comes up towards the ceiling. You're folding at the knee, and as you fold, you're going to imagine that whole plane. Yeah. And then imagine that plane sliding across the ceiling from side to side. Yeah. And let that plane come back down to the floor. And then you're going to bring your mind to the other foot. And bring that foot in. and fold that foot to the ceiling. And you can slide that from side to side a little bit. And then bring that down to the floor. Okay, so now you're going to turn your head across that axis. I'm just going to turn this. Which side do you want to face? You want to face that side. And then you're going to fold that foot and flipper that foot up into the crime scene position. Yeah, great. And in this position, just going to bring your mind to that angle of the knee, the angle of the foot, the angle of the pelvis, the angle of the arm. And just let that be for a moment. Then you can allow the lower leg to, on that axis, fold the foot in towards the pelvis. So the bent leg, you're going to just fold that towards the pelvis and then extend it. And really, really don't go too far. Just imagine that axis moving the foot. So this is definitely an exercise in pelvic release. So the moment that you go, oh, my pelvis is engaged, pause and imagine expansion through breath. And then you're going to do the same thing with the folded arms. You're going to unfold it, and you're going to have this this focus on the extension through these lines. That the lines are the things that are producing the extension. Yeah, beautiful movements. That's skill and poise right there. Beautiful, great. And then you're going to bring the foot down by the other foot and the arm back into folded position. And, you know, look the other way. So go to the other side. And see if you can turn that head on the axis. Yes, Hal. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing right there. And finding that position as the leg comes up, it's still a question of angles. It immediately produces angles to play with. As you fold that leg up, yes, yeah. This plane across here makes this plane across here is great. And you could spend a lot of time just in this position playing with the extension and contraction of the angle of the leg and the arm to see if there is a way of releasing in the pelvis so that there's extension. Is there a way through the femur and the base of the spine? You can imagine that line going right the way along the femur so that there is extension and release. And then a little extension and folding of the arm. And this and the folding of the arm is once again an invitation for the shoulder girdle, that axis to extend and open across the floor. Okay, so I'm going to bring that leg down a little bit because we're going to come up onto all fours now. So that line that comes out the top of the head as you bring your hands underneath to press up, you're going to see if you can press up the whole line. This whole line, yeah. You know, be aware of the line that comes out at the top of the head and the bottom. And you crawl towards the chair. And so each step of the arm is a line that goes through the floor. Each step of the knee is a line that goes through the floor and across the. So there's an arc of the movement of the limbs. And when you get to the chair, you know, you're imagining that same arc top of the head and the base of the spine is going to arc across the ceiling and across the underside of the planet. That is the paragon of that movement. Julie, great. And we're able to do this because of the fold in the connection right where the pubis is, rather than the fold in the imagined fold in the waist. We were talking about that yesterday. So teeter-totter with this glorious snake spine. And then when you get into an appropriate position, yes, beautiful. Yeah. You know, spin around and just take a seat. And let yourself become aware of the angles and the length of your limbs in contact with the chair. And rest your hands easy on, yes. And when you're resting your hands nice and easy on there, imagine the width of your shoulder girdle, that axis that comes out from the top of the arm. And with the forearm and the finger, imagine the length of the fingers. And you can bring your mind's eye to the axis that exists in the skull, sitting on top of the spine. Yeah. And since this is average working position, it then gives you tools for when you're stressed out staring at a screen, godforsaken economic fiefdom that we live in. You can be free to extend out and expand in connection with the universe. And when you come up to standing, fold in here, allow this fold and this fold to allow forward and up. Okay. Thanks for joining.